some moves tonight. You stand up, got something to prove tonight.
Buddy Ryan in one day said more honest things than Andy Reid said in 14 years.
So I taught them the guffaw.
My heart and soul into it.
You really ingrain yourself when people feel like you're doing exactly what they would do.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Old School. Very, very excited to do the show tonight, especially considering that it's NBA draft night. And I know for myself as a Sixers fan, a lot of times the NBA draft has been a shit show. Throughout most of my life, the Sixers have had a lot of bad draft picks. But one in particular that they did get right was in 1996 when they drafted the answer, Allen Iverson. So tonight, as we get ready for the draft, I want to kind of relive some of the glory days of that era, and in particular the 2001 season. I mean, guys, I've been watching ball since 1986, and the only time that this team has ever made it past the second round was the 2001 season, and it was a great year. So let's break down some of the memories, and we're going to have Bob Cooney and Clif Duquette coming on in a little bit to talk to us. So I got my usual cast here. I got my man Mike Fuji right next to me. What's up, Mike? How you doing?
Good. How's everybody doing tonight? Looking forward to this great show. Let's get it rocking.
Yeah, and then my man right below me here, I got my man Sean Kilrain. What's up, Sean? How you doing?
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing? Hanging in there.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll be doing good. I'll be doing good if we could get past this Ace Bailey crap. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what the hell the Sixers are going to do at number 3, but But anyway, hey, at least we could reminisce about some good memories, So
yeah,
let's. I got a couple comments here. Here we go. I got my man Raphael Laponte says, Sean.
What's up, Raph?
What's up, Raphael?
Says, PTR in the house. What's up, brother? How you doing, man? Thanks for checking us out, dude.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for coming on.
So, all right. Well, anyway, let's kind of look back here. I mean, God, 24 years, it's been 24 years since this franchise has made it, anywhere past the second round. Sean, I'll start with you, man. Like, what were some of your great memories from that season? You know what I mean? I know there's so many, but do you have one? Do you have like one in particular? I'll just tell you mine real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was driving around in the cars and seeing how everybody had I remember seeing all the Sixers flags. Like I've never seen, like, I don't know if I've ever seen a city support a team, even with the Eagles. I mean, this is a football town, but I don't know if I've ever seen a city support a team the way the city got behind that Sixers team. So like, Sean, what was your number one, what was your number one takeaway from that year?
I mean, Theo Ratliff. The way he played, George Lynch, Eric Snell. I mean, we can go on and on, but just the way these guys played, everybody counted us out, and we hung in there, but we didn't go to the finals, But I'll tell you one thing, Modell's was giving these bad boys out, if you remember, Joey.
Oh, yeah.
Iverson, Modell's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah. And the step over to me for Iverson over Tyronn Lue, hands down awesome. What about you, Fuj?
Just say, the way Allen Iverson came in, if you go back to the Netflix documentary,
yeah,
they're, threatening to trade AI, and, Pat Croce was kind of like the mediator that sat Pat Croce and Allen Iverson down, and the generation gap kind of just brought the two. Croce brought them both together, and it was like either work together or somebody's got to go. And the trade rumors that year were flying about getting rid of AI and just all the different things, and they came together, and AI put that team on his back and won the MVP, and just It's a shame they won the first game, but then the Lakers took the next 4. And here's my thing, just to go back, what if Theo Ratliff didn't get hurt? You think they would have went out and got Mutombo?
That's a
very interesting question.
That's a tough one though, because I still think they might have, and I know this is, and I love Theo Ratliff. Listen, this is probably an unpopular opinion because Ratliff was an all-star that year, but a lot of people, I don't think people realize how important Mutombo was in getting past the Milwaukee Bucks.
Right.
You look at that Game 7 in particular. I think Mutombo had like 20 some rebounds, 2-3 blocks. Mutombo, and a lot of people point after they got Mutombo, they were only like 14 and 11. They were right around 500, after they got Mutombo. So there was some growing pains.
Yeah.
But I don't think they get past the Bucks without Mutombo because he really dominated the glass. And I still think they might have made the move just because you knew you had to play either, San Antonio with David Robinson and Duncan. Or you had to try to defend Shaq. And at the time, no one could stop Shaq. But at the time, at least Mutombo gave you a puncher's chance. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, right. No doubt.
That's what a true center was, man. It's like Shaq, man, just banging in the paint. Maybe Mr. Joel Glass MB can take some notes, but that remains to be seen.
No, but Iverson just had the heart of a lion. Won the city over. It's just a shame. Shame it was a defensive team because, he really that year, if they didn't have the Lakers in front of them, they more than likely would have won the NBA championship. But, you go back after that and it was like, you brought in, you traded Kukoc in that deal to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Glenn Robinson, Chris Webber.
Aaron McKee.
But just, AI just never had that piece around him really to, as a Robin or a Batman.
Yeah.
When you really think about it.
Well, I touched on that in the article because the Sixers era of Iverson is again, 2001 was tremendous year.
Yeah.
But I to your point, Mike, about not having the running mate. We were so close. If you look at the 1997 draft, the Sixers wound up lucking out into the Sixers got the number 2 pick. Well, the number 1 pick was Tim Duncan. Now, imagine if Iverson and Duncan were next to each other. You know what I mean? And then the following year, 1998, the Sixers are picking 8, and Larry Brown makes a promise to Larry Hughes. Not thinking that Paul Pierce was going to be there. Well, guess what? The next 2 picks after Larry Hughes were Hall of Famer Paul Pierce and Hall of Famer Dirk Nowitzki. Now, obviously, I'm not going to kill them for not taking Dirk because, in all fairness, I don't think every back the Euro was kind of new back then. I don't think
it was just beginning. You're right.
Right. A lot of NBA GMs probably didn't necessarily see Dirk coming, but most of Philadelphia wanted Paul Pierce. So let's just say you had Iverson and Pierce as running mates, and then one other one. What if the Sixers actually? I think it was in the 99-2000 season. They had a trade worked out. It was like Larry Hughes for Tracy McGrady and a pick or something, and I think Stephen A. Smith had reported this at the time. The trade was pretty much done. And Toronto backed out because it got leaked. Now imagine if Iverson played next to the McGrady. You know what I mean? So it's but I will give this. If you think about it, though, you look at this Iverson era. You got to give a lot of credit. Larry Brown and Billy King as a sidekick, but those guys deserve a lot of credit because you look at how this team was built. I mean, Iverson comes in 96, rookie of the year. He's crossing up Jordan. He's doing things that a 6-foot guy has never done in this league as a rookie. But the team still sucked. You know what I'm saying? You bring Larry Brown in the next year, and if you guys remember, they were supposed to build. It was supposed to be Iverson and Stackhouse.
Yeah, and then they traded him, man. Yeah.
And so, I remember at that time, that wasn't the most popular trade. I mean, a lot of people were saying, hey, you know what? Let's not break up this backcourt. You know what I mean? Like, when they drafted Iverson, it was like, hey, we're going to have AI and we're going to have Stackhouse in this backcourt for a long time. Yeah. And, you got to give Larry Brown a lot of credit. I mean, that was a great trade. I mean, in the span of a month, I think they traded Stackhouse for Theo Ratliff and Aaron McKee, and then they traded a second rounder for Eric Snow, and they were all building blocks of this team,
Yeah, go figure.
So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, we could talk about this team all night, but we got our man Clif Duquette, our special guest author Clif Duquette, ready to hop on with us. So let me just add him on right here. Hey, Clif, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Mr. Duquette, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. Thank you so much for having me. This is it's great. Good vibes heading into the draft tonight, right?
Right.
Recollecting on what happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we were just talking before, and I mean, if anybody deserves good luck, it's a Sixers fan. I mean, just to put it in perspective, the first year I started watching ball, the very first game that I went to was the game where Moses got his eye poked out, and it was the last game that he played as a Sixer. So I had the privilege of, in that offseason, they ruined Barkley's career by trading Moses, and then they trade Brad Daugherty. So for me, the 2001 year is extremely, they're very close to my heart because it's the most success that I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, like I was back in the late 90s and early 2000s. That was my first introduction to how much the team could really rally a whole city and experience a level of excitement that, little did I know, I wouldn't experience again for a very, very long time. And it's funny you mentioned your first game, Joe, with Moses, in his last game. My fortune is the exact opposite. My first game was December of 1999 against the Detroit Pistons. It went into overtime, and Eric Snow hit a game winner at the buzzer to win.
Nice.
And that's when I knew I was destined for greatness as a Sixers fan.
Oh, I'll say this: I'm a little older than you guys, and was fortunate when Moses came in 82, 83. With Doc, Mo Cheeks, Andrew Toney, Ivoroni, the Secretary of Defense. When they beat the Lakers, it was I was 11 years old, and it was just great just to see the Doc get a chip and get the monkey off his back. And it was when that Sixers got Moses, they dominated that year. I mean, it was the missing piece because Darryl Dawkins obviously wasn't the guy that just couldn't get him over the hump those couple years. I do vaguely remember 76 when they were up on Portland. Bill Walton just dominated. I think back then they only played the best 3 out of 5, and they were up on Portland. And here Walton took Portland to they got the chip. And what was that? 76, 77, maybe, I believe. But, all those years, Doc came over from the New York Nets and couldn't get it done when Moses got here.
Yeah, I can only imagine how frustrating it must have been, back, 40, 45, almost 50 years ago, at this point. I guess the closest thing I could see is, how Golden State got Kevin Durant in 2016, right? Even though they had won before, in a sense, they got a missing piece to really, build its, build its own mini dynasty. And I think Moses won. I want to say he won the NBA MVP in '82. And then came over here. And I watched on NBA TV. They got some of the classic games from the '77 NBA. And as I was growing up learning about the Sixers, I could only feel what it was like. They're up 2-0, and everyone probably thinks they have it in the bag. and
meltdown.
Said, Bill Walton took over, and it was like the only. I want to say I'm not any kind of expert historian, but I want to say that might have been the only healthy playoff season of Bill Walton's career, right? Because he was so injured after it, and it happened to come against the Sixers.
And he got figured out. He went to Boston. He still had the foot injury, but kind of rekindled his career. Got another chip with Boston and Bird, Robert Parrish,
6 man of the year.
Those guys. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, you know what's funny? It's after they lost to Portland. I mean, and I was born in '78, so I didn't see that. But my grandfather told me that after they lost to Portland, they started a famous saying. They started a campaign. It said, "We owe you one." And then every year, the Sixers were always dominant. They would maybe lose to Boston or they'd lose to the Lakers, and then finally, when they got Moses, they finally got that one. So it's and now we've been waiting ever since.
we have. It's it's funny it's great how both championships for the Sixers, I know they were the Nationals before they were the 76ers, but both championships involved historical teams, right? National media, they love talking about the '83 team, and they even go back to the '67 team every now and then. They were considered the greatest team of all time, up until other teams more recently, were winning a lot of games. But I thought about this. I remember like a year or two ago, and if you take into account the franchises that existed back in the mid '80s, since '84 or so, you could make an argument that only the Sacramento Kings, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Washington Wizards had less playoff success than the 76ers. Since going back 40 years. Sacramento's been in the conference finals one time. Clippers have been in the conference finals one time. And the Wizards, they haven't even been out of the second round. Right. We complain about not getting out of the second round time again. They haven't been out since, we need to go back to their championship in the late 70s.
Right. With Wes Unsled, if I'm correct, right, Cliff?
What's that?
Wes Unsled.
Oh,
Unsold. Unsold.
Yeah, outlet passes.
Yeah.
Rebounding in the outlet.
But I mean, you go back the last, like you say, 50, maybe when they traded Wilt, the Lakers, because the owner at the time wouldn't give Wilt. I think they had some type of agreement where Wilt was going to get more money, and the owner didn't want to pay him, so they turned around and trade him to the Lakers. And really, you look at this franchise between Wilt, I forget who they might have gotten in that trade, but Barkley, Moses, AI, like Sixers never really got, equivalent, got back equivalent value. Just made some bad trades, like you said, Brad Daugherty and, the number one pick to Cleveland for Roy Hinson. It's just like this team's like shot themselves in the foot for all these trades that they made. And, it's just bad drafting. I mean, it's bad enough the city's had, with all four teams, has had bad history of drafting. But I'm not getting into those other teams, but just, it's like in a way, like you said, the other three, besides with the other three teams, it's just bad organization and bad ownership.
Yeah, when you look at it from a fan's perspective, you could blame that on a number of things, right? I mean, in
Right.
the end, it's tough to really know for sure. I mean, I know, yes, bad drafting, bad trades.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if we talk to other fans of other teams and they have their
Right.
own menu. Oh, you think you're bad? Well, look at what our team.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we're not the only one, but
sure, but yes, it should absolutely be noted how
I mean,
and those other franchises, they're not historical franchises.
Yeah.
right.
Look at the 76ers.
Well, even before them, the Warriors.
Yeah.
Well, at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Hey, you know what though? But hey, we could do a lot of the bad stuff, but let's focus on the positives here. I mean, that this 2001 team, if you think about it, I think they did a great job of putting this team together. Like Cliff, like right before you came on, I was saying how Larry Brown and Billy King, they deserve a lot of credit. Like, you remember, if you had just started watching at the time, like you said, this franchise was supposed to go forward with Allen Iverson and Jerry Stackhouse, and it took a lot of guts. I remember it was kind of controversial at the time. They traded Stackhouse for Aaron McKee and Theo Ratliff, and a lot of people didn't like that trade at the time.
I'm not surprised. You trade away a scorer for a couple of role players, basically.
Right.
Who in Stackhouse, he was an exciting player. No
right.
doubt about it. People assume that'd be the backcourt of the future, right? At least from what I learned from what I had read, and it was it's pretty remarkable when you think about it, because that was one of many moves that added up to a nice resurgence there in the franchise. Yeah, for sure.
That's Larry Brown's first year here. I mean, the team stunk, but he goes out, he gets Aaron McKee, he gets Theo Ratliff. I think they got Eric Snow for a second round pick in February. And then the following year, they go out and they get George Lynch, they get Tyrone Hill, and then next thing you know, they start making the playoffs, and I think we all could agree they signed Matt Geiger. Thank God for Matt Geiger, by the way, right?
Oh yeah. Who knew he would be the unsung hero of what was to come? For those who don't realize, who might be listening or watching, the Sixers, they practically had a trade agreement in principle, with Detroit and the Lakers and Charlotte, but Matt Geiger had a no trade clause, I believe, and he wouldn't budge on that. He said, I'm not doing this. Now, who knows if he and AI maybe made a little deal behind the scenes. I know there's some rumors around, behind that, but hey, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was it ended up working out for the best, and that was like the one move. It's amazing how you made all those great moves, including even Tony Kukoc there in 2000. And it's like they stopped right where the iron was hot. They were about to go overboard, right? It's like frying an egg. They're about to fry a little too much, but then they stopped at the right minute. Moment.
Yeah. What do you think of this comment here? Mike Papernick Jr. says he loves the Sixers, but AI couldn't play with another legit star. That is why they had a lot of role players. What do you think of that? Do you put some onus on Allen Iverson there? I mean, I know a lot of people put it on the franchise, but do you think AI deserves a little onus on that?
Well, I mean, you look at the evidence, right? So early on, he had Jerry Stackhouse, he had Derek Coleman, 20 point per game scores, and I know there were other issues going on, back then. Not any, didn't see any success. They brought in after a couple of years, they bring in players like Glenn Robinson, Chris Webber, and I get they didn't produce at the level we had maybe thought they would at that time. But then he plays with Carmelo Anthony and didn't get out of the first round of the playoffs. So the evidence does speak to that a little bit, and part of it is just because Iverson was a very unique player. He was an undersized shooting guard who needed the ball to be effective. And it's very, you need a specific kind of superstar to be able to work with that. And it's amazing that Larry Brown and Billy King worked together, realized that and built a team that complemented Iverson's strengths while also covering up his weaknesses. And that was the beauty of it. That's that the only way that team could have been better is if they had stronger 3-point shooting.
Yeah.
If they had a another, say, isolation score, decent chance, you don't see the success that they had.
Yeah, and if you really, when you really look back on it, because everybody, the 2001 team is like the classic example of what the team being better than the sum of the parts, right?
True.
But Eric Snow, I think, really deserves a lot more credit than he gets for that team, because he, it's a shame he wasn't a little bit better of a shooter, to your point, but he was a perfect complement for AI.
No, he really was. For a couple reasons. Number one, he was a bigger point guard, so he could help defend the opposing perimeter players, and that was huge. But then also he improved a lot more than, dare I say, I wouldn't be surprised, than even the Sixers staff had expected. Remember, this was a guy in Eric Snow who I want to say shot like 23% from the foul line one year.
Yeah,
That's outrageous. We thought Ben Simmons was bad, right? But anyway, Eric Snow worked on his jump shot so much to the point where he had become not only a reliable free throw shooter, but he also became a reliable mid-range jump shooter. It wasn't a guy who took threes, but with Iverson getting doubled and Iverson, learning how to trust his teammates more so, especially in the 2001 season. Eric Snow, not only with his improvement and his ability on both ends of the floor, but I would argue that he was the Sixers' most clutch player in the 2001 playoffs. Some may forget that. He hit the last 2 field goals against the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 5 of the conference finals, and made,
remember that. Yeah,
he made the last shot in regulation in Game 1 against the Lakers, and made the last basket in overtime against the Lakers in Game 1. He really came through when they needed him most. Yes, and to your point, it was a shame. It was a shame he got hurt, because he might have been an all-star that year had he not gotten hurt. He was getting 15 points a game. He was shooting the lights out from mid-range. He had really emerged that year.
Cliff, as far as the book you wrote, the 76ers with Iverson reliving the ride, the documentary that you were in, which was a little over a year ago, if that not
a little over 2 years ago, actually. It's amazing.
Can you can you go back to like 2000 to where basically the rumors were swirling about the Sixers trading Iverson and Pat Croce just coming in as the mediator and sitting down with Larry Brown and Allen Iverson and just bringing these two together? Can you touch on that a little?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'll touch on that from the perspective of a 14-year-old who didn't want Iverson to leave, for his life. I remember, that summer when the rumors were going around, and I'd watch Daily News Live on Comcast Sportsnet every day, and that was where I got my updates. And they would have the late Phil Jasner on, and he'd be giving updates on what was happening trade wise. He was the one who I heard, there was a trade nearly agreed on in principle. But then he comes on the next day and says that Matt Geiger's refusing to be traded. And then, so that season unfolds, and when before then, Iverson and Larry Brown, they're able to, to come to terms and are willing, to give this another go. But yeah, there were when they went on a losing streak in December of 2000, and they were losing games at home against teams that maybe they shouldn't have been losing to, and Larry Brown left for a bit, and that I think that's when there were a lot of rumors going on regarding, hey, what's going on here? Is he going to come back? Like, what? Everything was going well for this team, and for for Pat Croce to do what he did, I think we could all take that. If anyone's trying to teach a class on emotional intelligence, you got to use that as a case study right there. Where in the end, because of Pat Croce, at least it sounds like because of Pat Croce, based on the reporting, Larry Brown learned a lot more about where Allen Iverson was coming from, and Allen Iverson learned a lot more where Larry Brown was coming from, and it allowed Iverson to help Larry Brown become a better coach, and Larry Brown helped Iverson become a better player, and you saw that come to fruition with both of them winning awards that year.
What? Yeah, and also but also look at Pat Croce a few years previous where he sat down with the season ticket holders and actually heard them out. I mean, how many owners would have done that? I mean, can you imagine if Dan Snyder had sat down with Washington Redskin owners down there? You know what I mean? Like you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of owners, a lot of guys that are the face of a franchise like Pat Croce, would never do something like that.
No, I mean, you might see it in variations these days where, maybe they have an open-ended, question and answer on social media, something like that. But, hey, Pat Croce, he was that kind of guy who loved being in the spotlight, right? You need a certain kind of personality who's willing to do that. And I think that, Pat was, I think, the president at the time, Ed Snyder, being the owner, and I know the Sixers, they've tried variations of that in the past. I know Adam Aaron, who used to be the CEO, I think, of the Sixers back in the early 2010s. He held like a little mini town hall that I had attended. That was held, I think, in 2013, and he tried to answer questions. But yeah, I mean, it means a lot when someone in a leadership position is able to do that. It's a tough thing to do, right? But if you're able to do that, that really sets you apart.
Cliff, as far as you writing the book and everything, it's a question I asked the guys right before you came on, and I said, would the Sixers have traded Theo Ratliff and the Mutombo deal if he didn't get hurt?
Would the Sixers have traded Theo Ratliff if he did not?
In the package deal for Mutombo?
My guess is they would not have. The team chemistry was going great. I got the sense that really the big driving force behind that trade was that they really weren't sure how Theo Ratliff was going to come back from his injury. He breaks his wrist. You're told he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, but when you get into 6 to 8 weeks, you never know how he's going to come back, and just the way the team was humming along. I mean, they shocked enough people making a trade at 41-14. Had Ratliff not gotten hurt, their record, decent chance it would have been even better than 41-14. And it's just tough for me to imagine, say instead of 41-14, they're sitting there at say like 44-11. How can you make a trade? Trading one of your most liked players, winning almost 80% of your games. I would say no on that.
Here's another one too. Like, of course, they go against Kobe and Shaq, and I think the Lakers were like the biggest favorites like ever at the time. But I'm not going to say that the Sixers would have won the series because let's face it, that was a stacked Lakers team. But I kind of do wonder if that would have gone at least 6, maybe even 7 games had George Lynch been healthy, had Eric Snow not been playing on one leg. You know what I'm saying? Like the Sixers were so banged up, and I know they won game 1 and they lost in 5. But if you remember, like games 2 and 3 were toss-ups. I mean, those games could have gone either way. I often wonder, like, what would have happened if they were just a little bit healthier, if that could have been more of a series.
Yeah, it's fun to think about, right?
Yeah.
Especially when, game 2, they cut it to 3. In like the last 2 minutes, before the Lakers close it out, and in game 3, they're within 1 in the final minute. Shaq's fouled out, and they, unfortunately, couldn't get it done there. If they were healthier, could they maybe have won another game? Yeah, perhaps. But I think, with game 1, we didn't realize this at the time. Everyone was making a big deal about the Lakers having all this rest and the Sixers limping into game 1. And people still talk about the, rest and the advantage it brings today. And it is a big advantage when you're older and you've got injuries, to heal. But the Sixers were battle tested going into game 1. True. They were, the Lakers, they hadn't faced competition in 10, 11 days leading into that. Right. And the Sixers, meanwhile, they're still playing at against high level competition. So for them, like, they're ready to go to war. They're ready to do battle, and it takes the Lakers a little bit to warm up.
Right.
And so that in the end worked in the Sixers' favor. So none of us realized it at the time. So I think that was a big reason why they won. They won game 1, and had they been healthier, maybe they get a little bit of a rest too. I mean, there are a lot of what ifs out there. I'll give you this, Joe. I'll say had they been healthier, I'd give them a legit shot to win one more game.
Yeah,
but
it sounds about right.
Guess what? I feel like the story would maybe not have been quite as memorable, right? Isn't it kind of like a cool thing? The game you took was game 1. That's like the pinnacle of the story. That's like the climactic moment before things start to settle down in a way. So yeah, they definitely would have been more competitive, but in the end, Lakers still would have beaten them pretty well.
Our man Diego says they get smoked by the Lakers regardless. I mean, listen, I'm not saying they would have won the series, but just based off the fact that games 2 and 3 were so close, if they were a little like, for instance, if Eric Snow's not hobbled, if Aaron McKee can raise his arm, when Shaq fails out in game 3, maybe they win game 3, they go up 2-1, then they lose the next 3. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could see something like that.
I follow you. I mean, you define the term smoked, however you want it to be. But yeah, I mean, some may forget, Aaron McKee, he was practically non-existent after he hurt his shoulder and his ankles bothering him too. It's game 4, for instance, he was like 1 for 7 from the field or something. That's a starter, and you're not getting much production from anyone else besides Mutombo. I think we can agree. We give him a legit chance, greater than 50% chance to win another game. But no, definitely no more. Lakers, they were a historic team, arguably the greatest playoff team of all time.
Pretty much.
And you're right, because it kind of does add to the story. And I mean, being from Philly, it's like, I hate doing the cliche Rocky thing, but it almost kind of was, in a sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you win game 1, it's almost like Rocky 1, where he where you get the credit for standing there at the end. Like, that's kind of how I felt like the Sixers kind of were. Like, everybody, they lose in 5, but everybody knew that they were so banged up and they had such a great run that it was one of those things where I think the city was like upset that they lost, but they weren't it was kind of almost like expected. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Hey, being there, I was only upset the season was over. I would say I was more disappointed than upset. Just disappointed that I wouldn't get to watch them, anymore for months. Just because of how thrilling that whole ride was, and to your whole Rocky comparison. Yeah, sure. It's when you have that style of play, it's much easier to build an emotional connection with the Philadelphia fans. And the one thing I'll add to your Rocky example, hey, remember the big deal in that movie? He knocked down Apollo, right? Sixers knocked down the Lakers. You know, you
Right.
got some similarities there. Yeah, they knocked
Right.
it down when no one else, could.
Yeah, but I mean, not going forward after that season, it's just a shame they never could really, get up. They tried Glenn Robinson, they tried Chris Webber, and it's just a shame. Like,
Sure. Yeah, it is. It is a shame. I'm able to get past, the disappointment when I look back on that. But by again, I'll go back to the previous point before. We talked about how, the winning one game, the game one seemed to ironically, highlight the story more so than others. Well,
True.
I would argue they may not make a documentary on that Sixers team had they had a little resurgence and maybe made another finals run.
True.
It's just you have so many great storytelling elements here with the gradual build up to to that finals run, and that's what that's what we what we remember. If they had another say conference finals run or finals run, it would be remembered a little differently. But it's so like you have it has its unique spot in Philadelphia sports history and a lot of national basketball fans memories in history. You can definitively talk about that era so confidently because it has its own compartment in there. You don't need to think back like, oh, well, they made this trade and that trade. They got back up to it. They just never were. They played their part.
Hey, Mike, our man Mike Papernick Jr. has a comment. He says, "Did the Sixers look into trading for any other star player during that season? Other than just Mutombo? Did you ever hear any in your research? Did you ever hear any other possible trades they looked into?"
Well, I'm sure they were considering the availability of just anyone who they thought would check the box. But I think really when Theo Ratliff went down, you need a center. It's got to be a center at that point because your backup is Nazir Muhammad. And even though he's a bigger guy, I think they might have actually started him against the Lakers earlier that year. He was nowhere close to Theo Ratliff. And Theo Ratliff was an all-star that year. So you need a center. Not many impact centers are available. So and Mutombo puts that impression on Larry Brown in the 2001 All-Star game. And it's almost the deal sealed in their minds at that point. So sure, I'd like to think I'm sure that they considered what their options were. But Mutombo was probably high on their list. And when you have that All-Star game performance, they're really keyed in on him at that point.
Pretty much.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Talking 22 rebounds, you lead a comeback, Larry Brown's coaching.
Right.
And they're already considering acquiring him. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy you brought up, Mutombo. Like, I feel like people forget. I know. You had said, and I agree with you that maybe they don't make that trade if Ratliff's not hurt. But I don't think they get past Milwaukee without Mutombo.
Yeah, it's tough to gauge. Right, what may have happened if they don't make that trade. If that whole team stays together. Mutombo, he some may not remember he made a huge impact in that Milwaukee series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in Game 7 he had something like 23 points, 16 rebounds, 7 blocks, and the joke from that series was how the Milwaukee coach George Karl didn't think Mutombo would have a big impact because they were mostly a jump shooting team.
Yeah,
and there's Mutombo saying to himself, "Hey, you might not. I guess you forgot about what I did to you back in 1994, Coach Karl, when we became the first number 8 seed, upset number 1 in the first round." So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Joe. They might have lost. They might have won. It's tough to see how that series would have gone with the guy like Theo. Would Theo Ratliff have stepped up, in a similar fashion? Because Iverson, he was hurt throughout that series. He did not shoot the ball well. He needed players like Mutombo to step up, and Eric Snow and Aaron McKee. So I that's almost impossible to answer. I know it sounds like, I know you would love to hear from me. Oh yes, no, they'd still be, or no, yeah, you're right, no, they won't. But I really, that's really tough to look at.
No, I get you, because I mean, it's because that's the thing. Milwaukee was a jump shooting team, and I mean, you really don't know. It's one of those things.
Right.
Yeah. Again, they had great chemistry with Theo Ratliff. That they ran the floor really well, and he was leading the league in block shots at the time. But again, you see a lot of times, younger, we wouldn't have been surprised had maybe the youth of Theo Ratliff, that was a big difference. Mutombo was that veteran presence in there. You knew you could count on him for a deep playoff run.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we get out of here, who do you like them to take tonight? Any thoughts on the draft? Are you scared off by Ace Bailey? Or do you think they stay at 3? You think they trade?
With Daryl Morey, it is impossible. Like, your guess, anyone's guess is as good as mine. My dog's guess is as good as mine. As whether they keep the pick or do whatever. I'll admit, I'm not going to act like, oh, I want them to take this player because this player does this and does that. I'm no college basketball expert. As much as I would love to play the game and all that, but here's what I will say, and this this could be a debate for another time. It bothers me that people believe 2 of the top 3 players potentially in the country come from the same school that wasn't 500.
Yeah.
And it does make me, when Ace Bailey doesn't work out for anyone, it does make me curious. I'm with the Sixers, with the way they've underperformed the playoffs. I'm looking for guys who are, who play the game the right way, not just the basketball game, but
play the game.
Yeah. And, Cooper Flagg, he worked out, I believe, for Dallas. I could be wrong, but I believe he worked out for the Mavericks.
Yeah.
So with that said, I'll say this. Based on what I've heard and what a little bit of what I've read, I think it'd be nice if they went with VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think from just what little I've seen, he might be the best option for them. From what I'm hearing, not much of an Ace Bailey fan with just how he's handled things, and sure, maybe if I knew more about VJ Edgecombe, maybe I'd change up my mind. Maybe I'd say, screw it, just trade the pick. Get rid of, maybe make some other moves and maneuver around. But hey, yeah, I'll throw his name in my hats, so to speak, to see if that's where they go. Yeah.
Cliff,
for me.
Cliff, are you still a season ticket holder?
I am, believe it or not.
Let me ask you this.
I'm
going to be bluntly about this. You pay your hard-earned money, and I just, it's obviously they're locked into these contracts, but it's just a flat-out disgrace how they could just bring this slop back. I mean, it's like the Sixers front office just like insults the fans' intelligence, like to no end. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but Embiid's been done for the last 3 years to me. You go out and get Paul George, you'd be lucky if he even plays 50 games a year or half that. And it's just, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I hope I eat crow, but it's a disgrace.
Yeah, I want to say, Mike, I know you prefaced that by saying you're going to be blunt. I understand where you're coming from,
right, because
there are a lot of times when I feel that very similar, actually. Here's what I will say. As a fan, I am always hopeful. I am always going to root for them to do well, and part of that might be my teenager self,
right,
coming out and doing that. do we know for sure that they will bring back the same, as you said, slop next season? We don't know for sure right now because the offseason is so young, and Daryl Morey has pulled rabbits out of the hat before. That's kind of the lingering hope we have based on how much he's maneuvered in the past. Is Embiid done? You can make the argument that medically he is, and it's one of those where we cross our fingers and hope that the last procedure really got him back, to where he needs to be. And I understand Paul George. He played 70 games like once in the last, who knows how long, and it was in a contract year. So how much can you take that, seriously? I get that. I get all those concerns. I even have concerns about Maxey because he's an undersized guard, and undersized guards don't age very well.
And he's
we'll have to see how they handle it, and it's unfortunate as I learn more as an adult. It bothers me more and more, but I still do what I can.
I mean, you pay hard-earned money, to see this product, and it's
I know,
flat out disgrace.
And as a result, I'll admit I've gone to fewer games than I have in the past. I don't want to give off the impression that I fight Schuylkill traffic, every game, weeknight, going down. I'll admit I'm not as motivated. To go to games, especially when I know that they're not playing for anything significant like this past season. That's if you don't live close, it's tough. Unless you have a kid who is really excited and you want to bring him there.
Oh yeah, right.
And I have a 4.5-year-old who's just getting into it. He loves Franklin. He's learning the alphabet. And E is for Embiid in this alphabet book he has. And he's like, yo, that is Embiid playing tonight. And I tell him, no, he's not playing tonight. Is it because he's retired? No, he's not retired. He's just injured. And he starts laughing. Embiid is retired. No, he's not. And
he knows.
Yes, he is retired. And I'm like, okay, you win. All right, fine.
Your son's smart. He knows.
Yeah. So I it's more of a wait and see for me, and I hope things turn around. We've seen crazy things happen a lot of times. It's just it's unfortunate the timing behind this. I get it. I really do, and I'm not going to go out and say bet that they win 55 games next year.
No, I get it.
It's a shame because if he was healthy, I mean, you look at the landscape of the East with what Boston's doing right now, trading guys away, and Tatum going to be out, and then you look at Indiana, that was such a shame, Halliburton getting hurt the other night, but but you look at the East. I mean, the East is wide open. I mean, if Embiid, if Embiid could somehow pull like a Bill Walton from 1977, this team could contend next year.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. And that's the thing. I'm pretty confident Daryl Morey is still in win now mode, and he, and as well as many other GMs in the Eastern Conference, they all see the same things we do. They all think, hey, next year could definitely be our year, and that's another reason to to have hope for next year, because in theory there won't be any big juggernaut. There are even trade rumors coming out. The Knicks decided to fire their coach. After the playoff run they had. Anything is possible next year. It comes down to Embiid's health, because the offense revolves around Joel Embiid, whether people like it or not. That's just how the system is designed, and the team is built for that. And I would think that Daryl Morey is going to do what he can to keep putting this team in the best position to succeed next year.
Yeah, but well, hey, here's hoping that they make the right moves and they can go on another run, because missing the playoffs and being in the lottery, I mean, it sucks. We've done it way too many times, these last so many years,
Yeah. Hey, at least they kept their pick. At least they have a high pick. And I see someone, I see Michael, saying Morey has no clue. He might. I don't know whether or not he has a clue. What I will say is that he's had maybe one losing season as an NBA general manager. The one thing giving me hope is because of Daryl Morey's reputation, it would just surprise me to have a second straight bad year from him. Again, there are a lot of times we count people out, and they find a way to turn your prediction upside down. How many times things seem so obvious,
True,
only to turn out a totally different way. So you
pretty much Philly itself.
What's that, Sean?
That's pretty much Philly in itself. Everybody doubts us. Everybody hates us because they ain't us.
Yeah. We knew the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl, right?
I know, right?
After the way they ended the previous year,
Yeah. Hey, you never know. You know what I mean? You never know. And I sometimes wonder. I mean, thinking about this Embiid era, like, you think about some of the great sports what ifs, and like can you imagine like I'm thinking in 2001, Vince Carter's shot is long. What if Kawhi's shot doesn't go in 2019? Like, have we won a championship now? You know what I mean? That's what's so great about sports. Like, you could point to like what if moments, like one moment in time could change the whole course of history.
What if?
Yeah.
What if they kept Jimmy Butler over Tobias Harris?
Yeah.
That would be great, man.
You could do a whole show.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Oh, Mike and Sean, each one of you could come in for a full show with your mini little story of what you think would happen, and each one of those I'm sure could be very, very feasible. Who knows what would have happened, and yeah, it's Toronto in 2019, that was like payback, right?
I know
the way the series went. Hey, luck is part of the game.
That's right.
Very much so.
Sometimes it works out in your favor, other times it doesn't. And I know these days it feels like we've had a lot of bad luck, and maybe that means we're due. We got the third pick, so maybe that's the start of things to come.
True.
Yeah. Well, listen, Cliff, I really, really appreciate you hopping on, coming on with us. It was a great time. I love reminiscing.
Appreciate it.
And where can people check you out?
So you can check me out on Twitter. I don't tweet quite as much as I used to, at Clif Duquette with one F, at Clif Duquette. And then for those who want to relive the 2001 season, it's the closest thing you'll have, as I tell people, you'll ever get to a time machine. You want to get time machine and go back and have a courtside seat to everything going on. That's what the book is for, on Amazon. So, the cover, Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue, doesn't get any better than that, right?
Yeah, man.
So,
iconic.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed, talking to the three of you. It was really great meeting the three of you. And
same here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and don't ever forget, when you're tired, Iverson's favorite quote: "Fatigue ain't nothing but army clothes." Right after game one, you know what I'm saying? So hey,
that's right.
I use that a lot. I stole that from him. So
he scores 48 with that many injuries. We can certainly do our thing, right?
Very true.
All right. Hey, well, thanks a lot, and go Sixers. Let's hope they ace this draft here.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it starts tonight. All right.
All right.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Yeah, that was fun, man. I love looking back,
Yeah, man. Get people's different perspectives on how they saw it, when they saw it, it's good, and different feedback too as well,
All right.
Yeah, so whatchamacallit? Okay, so anyway, yeah, so that was, we pretty much covered the team. It was, great year. The Iverson era brought a lot of excitement. It's just a shame. It's just a shame. How about the other thing? What I forgot to mention this, like, they were on the Daily News, like 34 straight days or something like that.
Yeah.
On the cover of the Daily News, like 34 straight days. We've never seen that in the city since then.
They had, I think, the Lynch mob, George Lynch up there, McKee, Iverson. I mean, I remember because I used to get
East
the
Snow.
we used to, every day get the daily news, for the box scores. Now it's just irrelevant.
Yeah. What do you think of this? Because we were talking about what ifs. Mike Papernick Jr. says, "What if the Sixers had traded Ben Simmons for Anthony Davis?"
We still got another Embiid, Mr. Glass. Look at how he is now.
Could have had it for Halliburton too a couple years ago.
Yeah,
it's always
another
the
one.
show to what is, like you said. It's just,
I don't think they would have traded Anthony Davis for Ben Simmons. Actually, I forgot to ask Cliff this, because when he was talking about the guys from Rutgers, I was having flashbacks to Ben Simmons, actually, because if you guys remember when Ben Simmons was coming out, everybody and their mother kept saying Ben Simmons was going to be like the next Magic Johnson, the next LeBron James, all this stuff. Right. But LSU didn't even make the tournament. And I remember thinking at the time, it's kind of the same thing about this Rutgers kid. You know what I'm saying? Like if this guy's that good, how the hell do you not make the NCAA tournament? And that's my biggest concern with this Ace Bailey kid. It's like,
right.
It's like think about it. Dylan Harper's the consensus second pick. And Bailey is supposed to be he was supposed to be the third pick. Now we don't know. But you got the 2 and 3 pick in the draft, and these cats can't even make the NCAA tournament. I mean, I know the rest of the Rutgers team blows, but Christ, you'd think those two could at least get the tournament.
Well, Washington, on a different note, is real high on Ace Bailey. So we could probably see Ace Bailey going to the Washington, and we get the 16th and 18th pick, and maybe we get
Washington 6 and they're 18. So
hey, whatever. See what happens,
Yeah. So, okay. So anyway, all right. So, anything else you guys want to wrap about before we close this out?
I want a healthy Embiid, if that's possible.
What'd you say?
I said I want a healthy Embiid, if possible. Yeah, right.
Well, Paul George too. I mean,
that guy too.
I mean, it'd be nice.
Got another comment here. Mike Papernick Jr. says Elton Brand, as GM, did go to the Sixers management and asked to inquire about a Simmons for Davis, but management shot it down.
Okay.
I mean, shit, I would have done. I mean, I don't know. That would have been kind of intriguing. I mean, Embiid playing next to Anthony Davis. I mean, you'd be extremely tall. You know what I mean? It'd be like a Twin Towers type thing. You know what I mean?
True.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward, you get two guys that are always injured.
I know, right?
But
stealing money.
Yeah.
Like
not like Andrew Bynum, though. Not like him.
Oh,
that guy was amazing.
It's another. No, don't get me started.
Yeah, well, another time in a day for that. I hear you.
Hang on a second here. Mike Papernick Jr. says, "Are you guys doing a podcast on Out of the Box Sports after June 30? Yeah, we're doing the show this Monday. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, we're doing the show this Monday. Recap the Sully Squad will be on recapping the NBA NHL draft.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just to close out this Iverson era, I mean, so many great memories. It's. I guess I want to say I'll always look back at this era with a smile because I choose to be positive. You know what I'm saying? But then, like we talked about before, there's a part of me that goes, damn, like what could have been, you know what I mean? Like so close to having Iverson and Duncan, so close to having Iverson and Paul Pierce, so close to McGrady, you know what I'm saying? But it was, but all in all, I mean, hey, the 2001 Sixers, I mean, they couldn't quite get over the hump, but they played against an all-time great team. And you know what? They'll always be champions in my book because that just watching the way those series were. I mean, they were wars like that.
They're back and forth. Yeah, absolutely.
hang on, one more comment here. Sean Austin says, would they have beaten Milwaukee with Theo Ratliff? You know what? I know Cliff didn't want to answer that one necessarily, but I mean, my opinion, I don't think they would have. I think Mutombo was the difference in that series. What do you guys think? Because even though Ratliff was an all-star that year and they had great chemistry, Mutombo's boards, I mean, he dominated the boards. That's just my opinion, though. I don't know what you guys think.
Good.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
So Sean Austin says he was against the trade. I didn't love the trade necessarily either. He agrees.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was just a move they had to make. You know, like Cliff said, they didn't know when Theo was coming back. You know, so and that, you know, you look at it, that was their one chance, their one opportunity for a championship in that whole era. So they had to go for it.
Yeah. And that wrist injury was pretty bad, you know. So,
well, yeah. I mean, obviously, like you said, you had to make that trade because you didn't know him. Ratliff being out 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, you didn't know where you were going to go back at that time.
Yeah, and you know, looking at it, Sean Austin wouldn't have mattered. No one was stopping Shaq and a young Kobe. Yeah, we agree. I agree. I mean, we were kind of saying maybe if they weren't so banged up, maybe they could have won another game. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean that's that Lakers team. I mean they were right in the heart of their dynasty. I mean they were in the year 2 of their three-peat. You know what I'm saying? And you know, and that was the best Lakers team. I mean, shit. The only time they lost was the game we beat them. The only loss of the whole playoffs was game 1 when we beat them.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, great era. You know, lots of great memories. It's a shame they couldn't get it done. But anyway, I guess we're going to wrap it up. Get ready to watch the draft here. Hope that the future Sixers can give us some good memories. You know, the old school will be back in about a month. Really excited. Any football fans out there, I'm really excited about this next one because, you know, we have a world champion football team right now. And our next show is going to be about Jeff Lurie and the Jeff Lurie era Philadelphia Eagles. And basically how, you know, if you look at, you know, Lurie bought the team. You know, everybody obviously gives credit to Howie Roseman. And then before that, it was Andy Reid and, you know, of course, the players. But, you know, I want to actually give some credit to the guy at the top because, you know, if you look at this franchise since Lurie bought the team in 1994, the Eagles are top 4 winning percentage, right, guys?
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, they've basically gone from, like we grew up watching Buddy Ryan era, you know what I mean? And he brought some excitement, but now the Eagles are at the big boy table and they're world champs. So I think the guy that owns the team deserves some props. So, you know, that'll be our next show. So make sure you tune in about a month from now. We'll be doing the Jeff Lurie show. So, but that
looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially right around NFL training camp. You know what I mean? So yeah, we got a lot of good ideas coming. You know, Jeff Lurie. Then I think around pennant race time. I think I was thinking about doing maybe Phillies, like, you know, the Ryan Howard, Chase Utley team. You know, so got a lot of good stories coming up. So if you like taking DeLorean rides and reliving the past, you know, make sure you check us out. So, you know what I'm saying? Get in that DeLorean, Mike.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, I was just thinking of the scene in Back to the Future when Doc Brown jumps in after being chased with the what was that, nuclear by the what was like a Volkswagen van.
Yeah, well, you know, we could say hot tub time machine, but that, you know, that guy that made the bet on the Denver Broncos Cleveland Browns game, it didn't work out too good for that dude. Remember?
No,
he changed history.
No, what would be perfect? The book, the almanac that what's his name got? Biff. where he made all the money, going back to future.
I know, right?
Future champions.
Yeah.
So that would be something to have.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So, all right. Well, listen, thanks for everybody. Thanks for Clif thanks to Clif for coming on. Thanks for everybody to checking us out, and go Sixers. And, we'll be back next month. So we will see you